Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Intern Club podcast. We are Destination Internship. My name is Michael. I'm here with my brother, Matt.
My name is Matt, and I also am part of Destination Internship, where we talk about how to help you get an internship.
Main part of Destination Internship, we created this together. We are two brothers, and we went through the internship process during college. We landed internship offers at companies like Apple, SpaceX, McKinsey, Boston Consulting Group, Johnson & Johnson,
So John Deere, General Mills, General Electric, General Motors, lots of generals.
and we started Destination Internship to democratize the best practices and strategies that we found to be effective over the years for as we navigated not only the search but also getting success in the internship field. So we're making this for you all.
I think one thing about success is it's important to be successful to start early, and so one thing that students wonder when they're starting out is, I'm a freshman, I'm a sophomore. Can I include high school experiences on my resume?
Yeah, you can include high school experiences on your resume, but when you look at your resume, you want it to be your best experiences. And especially for college freshmen, in my experience, recruiters are very aware that if you're a freshman, you've only had a limited amount of time on campus, which means a limited amount of time to get involved in student organizations or research, limited amount of time to really be involved in things and to have an impact. So if you have high quality high school experiences, it's okay to include that on your resume as a freshman. But at the same time, we want to be looking at gaining college level experiences early on, which, Matt, what are some ways to do that?
Well, I think wherever you're at in school, whether you're a freshman, sophomore, junior, it's fine to include some high school experiences on your resume. I remember when I was trying to get SpaceX, Tesla internships, which I did get. I still had one high school activity on my resume, and
Do you know,
that was
can you share like generally what that is to the audience?
that was a competition that I was a part of. I studied Mandarin Chinese during high school, and so I was in high school, took part in a competition and got what was in the competition a silver medal multiple years in a row. And so that was actually the activity I thought was really interesting. I enjoyed the activity, and it was something I just, even though it was from high school, was something I wanted to include on the resume at that time. So that's what influenced it being on my resume. But even if you are maybe limited in the types of experiences, I know you asked about the types of experiences that you can get as a freshman or during college. But if you're limited in the number of college experiences that you have on your resume, there still are things that you can pick and choose from high school. Some things are like sports or clubs, student organizations, or personal projects. For example, some of the robotics competitions or hackathons, I know specifically for more STEM oriented students, are pretty popular. But also in terms of just expanding your resume once you get on campus, there are quite a couple different ways. The one primary way I've seen STEM students gain experience is just getting involved in research. That's a really easy way to get plugged into the school's sort of the systems involved in your school at your school, get to meet new people, meet professors. Another thing on campus, obviously, is clubs and student organizations. I think a lot of students sometimes sometimes students tend to fall on there's three sort of categories of students when it comes to student organizations. I think that there's the ones who much and just get over involved and they don't participate at all, or in
Well,
but then the one extreme is you're quote a member in 10 organizations, but you don't actually do anything, and that's not really impactful on your resume. The other extreme is you just aren't involved in anything at all on campus, and that's also not necessarily great. But there's a sweet spot in the middle where you're involved in just a handful of things that you like, you care about, and you're actually contributing to meaningfully. And that is where you get the most bang for your buck, and you're actually, in terms of just the experience you're getting out of it, what you can put on your resume, but then also maximizing for maybe just enjoyment, because that's why students join these organizations. They like it. They like the friendship. They like the group of people they're working with, and they genuinely like the things they're working on. Like there's different on campus. There's different maybe rocketry teams, aerospace clubs, formula race car teams, electric car teams, chemical car teams, whatever it may be, or marketing organizations, and you genuinely like it and you get involved and you enjoy the experience rather than either not being involved or just forcing yourself to be part of too many things.
And I think being involved in just the right number of student organizations lets you be involved in the right organizations that get your passions out. Like the ones that you
Right.
just are really excited to do, that even though you have homework and exams and you have social activities and you have going to the gym and getting sleep and talking with your family, you have all of these things going on, just to add on top of that a willingness to be in these organizations because they're your passion or because you really enjoy them.
What I think is great is that you get a triple benefit. You get the resume boost, you get the friendships and relationships and the social aspect, and then you also get in some cases like a skill development aspect too. So I guess
Yeah.
that's resume boost as well, but you can learn new skills. You get experience with different tools, whether you're doing something like marketing and you get experience working with a social media, or you're in a more engineering club and you're getting experience with tools and devices that are engineering focused. You're growing yourself in a useful way. So that's where I think student clubs are useful.
Yeah, on that note, there's a lot of different roles that you can take in student organizations, like member growth, member management, onboarding new members, recruiting new members, but then also actually doing the tactical work of the organization.
So I think that's interesting is that you don't have to be involved if it's a engineering student organization. Maybe it's an organization within an engineering sort of college on campus. They if they're a large organization, they have money coming in, money going out, money being spent on things. If you study finance, you just because it's part of the College of Engineering, it doesn't necessarily mean that if you study finance and you're interested in the topic that's going on in the club, you can't try to be involved in the finances of that club.
And that's where I think student organizations can have two components to them that are particularly helpful in getting an internship. Number one, the field, and then number two, the function. And so the field would be an industry, for example, a rocketry team within the aerospace industry, or an electric car team in the EV automotive industry. And so being involved in those types of teams would show an interest in that particular industry. But then what you do within those organizations, what you do within the student organizations, show your function, right? So that's what I think is like two parts of student
Yeah.
organizations. Function you mentioned. Are you on the finance part of the student organization? Are you on the design part of the student organization? The recruitment part of the student organization? So there's a lot of different ways to build skills in student organizations.
Two ways. I think that's interesting. Well, there's two ways overall it could appeal on your resume. Either what you did, or just what the overall organization is.
Right.
Like you said, it could appeal to a specific company, just the type of work that the organization does. But then it could appeal to specific skill sets, the type of work you're doing within the organization.
Yeah. So that's about gaining experiences. I know we started this conversation talking about should a freshman in college put high school experiences on the resume? So just to recap that, what my thoughts are is that you want valuable experiences on your resume if you have valuable high school experiences that showcase a particular skill or experience that you feel is important to the role, and that high school experience is definitely something that supports your application. Like it makes sense. It's not a problem to have high school experiences on your resume, but we say this with the addition or the side note of, in college, start looking for acquiring college level experiences and opportunities, whether it might be student orgs, research, different types of things that you can do on campus. Let's move.
Well, generally
Let's
speaking,
go
too, the
ahead.
things that you're involved in on campus are going to be significantly more recent, significantly more relevant to any internship. So they will generally be very, very valuable. But
Right.
if there's something really interesting you want to reach back to in high school, or if you're just starting out and you feel like you got to grab some stuff from high school, you can try to fill your resume with
I
that.
think
But
that's a good way to say it. Recency and relevancy, because the recency, if it's from high school, is not going to be as recent as college level experiences, which means it should be highly relevant. So let's jump back to your example where you had Mandarin as a skill on your resume, where that was something that could be seen as like perhaps a differentiating factor for your
Yeah.
candidacy. That is very relevant, even though it is not recent. You could make the argument it's recent because you still have that skill, but the experience or the certification or the demonstration of the skill was from high school. But that would be relevant because it differentiates you from other
If you,
applicants. And if you still have the ability, it's still kind of
it
recent. So that's
still
just
shows skill. Yeah.
just an example of like how we're evaluating recency and
Hmm.
relevancy in your case, or at least
Yeah.
how I might interpret it at first look.
Hmm.
Should we move on to question
I
number
think
two?
question number two.
Sure. So question number two was, what suggestions do you have for requesting referrals?
I think referrals. What do you think about this?
Yeah, I like going with referrals. I would look at referrals first through networking. I think referrals are the result of networking. I know there are some individuals where they might just request referrals without, like, kind of cold. But when in my experience, and I'll just speak on my experience, I would request referrals, and rather than referrals, I would request support for my application because I'm like not sure how different companies might do it. And so what I would do is set up a networking call first, and that's like a coffee chat with an individual who I figured might be somewhat involved in the hiring process. Learn a little bit more about the role, talk about why I might be a good fit for the role and why I'm interested in the role, and then I would kind of wrap up the conversation asking if I can get if my application or if this individual would be I would wrap up the conversation asking if this individual would be willing to support my application.
So at the end of the day, some type of general support or general connection with somebody who can actually support your application is significantly better than just blanketly reaching out to a ton of people asking for a referral. Because if they're going to quote refer you, they're also putting their reputation on the line, and people generally, don't take that lightly, referring somebody who maybe they've never even met before or talked to before. So, what do we have on tap for our next topic?
Yeah, so the next topic would be what types of questions to ask. So this is kind of, we mentioned, or like at least I mentioned, the coffee chats. And so coffee chats are basically another word of saying networking calls or conversations with some of your connections in your professional network. Could be over coffee, it could be a virtual call, it could be a phone call. It doesn't have to be a coffee specific chat. But the question was, what types of questions should I ask somebody in a coffee chat if they're looking? So if this individual is looking to get an internship and they're setting up a coffee chat, what types of questions should they ask?
I think there's a couple different categories. They could ask about the general process of getting into the company. They can talk about the company itself, and then you can talk about specific roles within the company as just a couple different broad categories to start jogging your mind and thinking, what could I ask? What about the company? Maybe you have questions about the products, the services, or how they operate, or maybe the culture, maybe also the, like I said, that the hiring process. What does that look like for people? Maybe specific timelines. Another thing, the other thing I mentioned was company, the hiring process, the type of work. So maybe you're talking to somebody that is in the same line of work that maybe you're interested in. You can use the opportunity to learn more about that, what that entails. Because the one thing I know is that there's always way more than what meets the eye. What meets the eye is just the tip of the iceberg usually when it comes to what you think a job or role would include.
And you could really dig into the day in the life
A
because
day
like
into life.
I think a day in the life is a lot different than just a job description because you see not only the high level aspects of the role that you can
Yeah.
get from a description online, but you also can ask somebody like, all right, tactically, like what does your day look like? Like what's
Yeah.
50% of your day? What's 10%? Like you can kind of understand where time is allocated, and it gives you a real grasp in terms
Yes.
of like from a first-hand account of somebody in the role in terms of what it's like to work on that job. And I think another point too is if you're doing a coffee chat for an internship, what do interns do in that role? because sometimes
Hmm.
interns might only have a portion of the full-time responsibility or something, or you kind of understand what the expectations are for interns on the team.
And to what I think, when you ask that, you may hear a very good response sometimes, and of, well, our last intern did this, and you can
Mm,
get a very realistic idea of it. But I like that idea of the day in the life.
that's interesting. Another thing that I like to talk about, just something that I've learned, is that I like to start my coffee chat conversations asking the individual about themselves, because
Hmm.
I think it's a nice kind of icebreaker to have a lot of different things to ask questions
Hmm.
about and to talk about. And one of the questions that I would ask was about, can you, I understand you're in this position now. Can you walk me through your career trajectory? And you can kind of
Hmm.
understand what steps they took to get there and why,
Hmm.
and what skills and experiences were important to get to the level that this person was at.
It's really good. I like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that wraps up. We're about time for this episode.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in, and join us next week as we answer more of your questions. If there's anything that you want us to talk about or cover, feel free to
Put in the comments.
leave a comment, and then also check out our resources if you're interested in getting one-on-one coaching with us to help you get your next internship. Please check out our description and check out the coaching application form that we have.